Let's bring in Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy. Senator, I want to get your reaction to what she just said in the show, because how would you respond? I mean, do you think the U.S. effectively can handle all of these conflicts at once? I mean, she and I talked about not just what's happening with Yemen, but Iran, what's happening with Taiwan and China. You've got an election there tomorrow. And frankly, there's a lot of criticism being thrown at the way that President Biden and Defense Secretary Austin has handled all of this.
Yeah, you don't wait until the water's up around your ears to start complaining about the alligators. I agree with Ambassador Haley that if he had struck early, hard, it would have sent a message to Iran not to do this. But on the other hand, this is not a major commitment of U.S. forces. We have the fleet there already. The Brits are helping us. And if and Iran's going to keep on coming after us if we do nothing. So I agree with going after the Houthis. We got to make Iran pay too. The Iranians are rational. They're not going to ratchet up if they think that we're going to go in response after them. They're rational, but they're also opportunistic. If they see a weak president, they're going to keep on pushing. And so I agree with the ambassador. We need to do something.
Well, and we did. And again, the Houthis are saying they're going to respond. So certainly with Iran pulling the strings throughout the Middle East right now, we're in dangerous times. So I want to move to what's happening here at home. We're 1 week out from a government shutdown. I'm curious if you're frustrated with what you're seeing play out in the House with this spending deal and this group of House Republicans that are, well, basically criticizing and I'm going to say threatening Speaker Johnson. You know, they want things broken apart. They don't want any more CRs. Your response, what would you say to them right now?
I am frustrated. They're behaving as if Republicans have a supermajority in the House and the Senate and control the White House. I'll point out, when the former President Trump was the head of the White House, he was the president, he had to back down. The longest shutdown in government history, and he had to kind of put his tail between his legs and back down because, as it turns out, when the government shuts down, Republicans are not perceived very well. We don't have the majorities. We don't have the power. You got to govern. Mike Johnson's a good guy. They ought to give Mike Johnson some cover. Yeah,
and they've got a thin majority right now in the House. Let's move to this. You've unveiled a bill, co-sponsored with John Fetterman, your Democratic colleague, to protect college students from anti-Semitism and discrimination on campus. I want to ask you about that bill, and also throwing this out there, you know, when it comes to Harvard, they've got a $50 billion endowment. We're giving them over $500 million, the federal government is. I mean, the House controls the purse string, Senator. Why doesn't the House do something about this? Take action and hit them in the pocketbook.
I think that's a very fair thing to say. They got a $50 billion endowment. They don't pay taxes on it. But they continue to get a lot of dollars from the federal government, not just things like NIH grants. It's a great research university, but other dollars as well. And so I think it's reasonable for the Congress to look at these institutions. Is it worth it to subsidize if what we're subsidizing turns out to be pushing a woke agenda? I think that's a really good question, Cheryl. It's one I'll also be asking. And our legislation, you asked about that. John Fetterman, the senator from Pennsylvania, and I, we're putting forward legislation that would require universities to let their students know that if they are being persecuted, for example, for being Jewish, and they don't have a safe environment in which to learn, that they have rights, existing rights under the federal government. And to let those students know how to call up the Office of Civil Rights to make the complaint. We'd also audit universities to make sure they're doing this and also to see how they're responding to the complaints that are being made. We had a roundtable. A lot of the Jewish students didn't know that they could file a complaint, and yet they're the ones who feel as if they are in a hostile environment. So I think the bill that Senator Fetterman and I have will go a long way to addressing that.
Well, the Jewish students at Harvard, instead of going to classes and focusing on their education, they're now suing Harvard because they feel like they've been backed into a corner and not supported. So I'm glad that you've got that. You've got this proposal with Senator Fetterman. Senator, thank you very much. It's good to see you, sir. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Cheryl.
All right.